To See Ourselves by Robert F. Young. Published in Science Fiction Stories in 1954 by Columbia Publications, Inc. Edited by Robert W. Lowndes. According to SFF Audio, the text of this story is in the public domain. As Immanuel Kant put it, what may be the nature of objects considered as things in themselves and without reference to the receptivity of our sensibility is quite unknown to us. To See Ourselves by Robert F. Young. Transcript of John P. Willoughby's report of the first Terran-Martian meeting. Mare Erythraeum Sector, Mars, January 16, 1990. They are like us. That one amazing fact stands head over shoulders above all the other facts this expedition has amassed. Martians are not green, they are not multipetal, they are not Lilliputian. In short, they possess none of those outer characteristics accredited to them by the impulsive science fiction writers who thrived several decades ago. Martians are human. We landed on the fringe of one of the geometric agricultural tracts, once referred to as canals by those same writers, that crisscross the habitable areas of Mars. The Martians arrived a short time later. When Captain Berg, astrogator Wells, Pilot Rollins, and myself descended from the lock, they came toward us across the irrigated field that separated their copter-like vehicle from our ship. At first, we could not believe our eyes, for in spite of our better judgment, and in spite of the Terran-like cities we had viewed during orbital descent, we had been expecting some teratological life form with far too many limbs and eyes, and of a hue ranging from lurid purple to vivid green. And all we saw were 3 tall, bronzed humans. The foremost member of the welcoming party, for such it turned out to be, stepped forward with an outstretched hand, and Captain Berg, capable officer that he is, arose to the occasion. Concealing his consternation, he accepted the Martian's hand, fulfilling the age-old, galaxy-wide perhaps, gesture of friendship. Wells and Rollins and I stood by, open-mouthed, overwhelmed by the revelation that one of our traditional human mannerisms had the same social significance on Mars as it did on Terra. It was a moment none of us shall ever forget. The Martian said something in a rather sibilant tongue, and Captain Berg responded in English. As his words deserve to go down in history, I have carefully recorded them, and I hereby present them to civilization for the first time. We have conquered the abysmal wilderness of space and stand confident on the threshold of a new civilization. As spokesman for Terra, I salute you, men of Mars. And stepping back after the handclasp, he did just that, drawing his body taut in the traditional manner and raising his right hand slowly to his right eyebrow, then cutting the salute smartly and whipping his hand back to his side. What followed is almost as remarkable as the astonishing resemblance of our fourth planet neighbors to ourselves, for the Martian reciprocated. He drew himself as taut as Captain Berg and delivered a salute that would have satisfied the most exacting of military men. The other 2 Martians seemed as incredulous as Wells, Rollins, and myself. They stood there with their mouths slightly open, their eyes wide. One of them had a pad and pencil in his hand, and after recovering from his surprise, he began to write quite furiously. I surmised then that he was the Martian equivalent of a reporter. He and I shall have much to discuss later. The historic moment over, the foremost Martian pointed toward the copter-like vehicle and indicated that we were to accompany him. I obtained permission from Captain Berg, first to return to the ship and transmit this report. In a moment I shall rejoin the others, who already have boarded the Martian aircraft and are awaiting me. More later. Transcript of Slissier-Sis report of the first Martian-Terran meeting. Most hallowed Oso 4. The 63rd rotation of the 10,000th orbit, 21st cycle. I was delegated to accompany His Most Sacred Highness, Thissis Sis, First Administrator to our Most Hallowed City, and His Most Sacred Highness, Ptitus Ris, Second Administrator to our Most Hallowed City, on their mission of contact with the inhabitants of the first third planetary ship entity. The information I have to report is incredible. They are like us. Such a statement is difficult to assimilate. We of Most Hallowed have been overly influenced by the spate of speculative fiction that has invaded our literature during the past several orbits and have come to regard our third planet neighbors as anything but human. But they are human. Second Administrator Petitus Riss landed the Tift some distance from the ship entity, and we extended to the ground. Then we watched while the humans from 3 extended to the ground. At first, we could not accept our retinal images, for despite our determination to be objective, we had expected some teratological form of life with far too few limbs and eyes, and a color ranging from white to black. One of the more sensational of our speculative fiction writers had predicated a race of bipeds on 3, and that, more than anything else, tended to pervert our better judgments. And all we saw were 4-tentacled, elongated humans. We extended rather slowly across the field which separated us from the ship entity, fearing that a too pronounced rapidity of movement might frighten our visitors. They were not at all frightened, however, and when First Administrator Thysis Sis extended forward, tentatively projecting his sanctified tentacle, one of the thirds, undoubtedly a First Administrator, extended himself forward, projecting his sanctified tentacle, and the 2 humans proceeded to entangle feelers in the cycle-old gesture of affiliation to Oso. I believe that what First Administrator Thysis Sis articulated is worth recording for future generations, and I am happy to be able to recall it verbatim. Welcome to 4, men of 3. Most hallowed Oso, greatest of the city entities, awaits you. The third articulated something in an odd fang, totally lacking in euphonious sibilance. He retracted his tentacle, then, stiffening his body in an attitude of striking humility, he raised the same tentacle to his hood, held it there briefly, and then retracted it again. I could sense that First Administrator Thysis Sis was as astonished as I was. Not so much because of the third's uncanny familiarity with our religion, but because of his almost unbelievable devotion to a city entity he had never served. A devotion so profound that it would lead him to dedicate himself and his companions for consumption before any of them had reached the compulsory age limit. First Administrator Thysis Sis recovered quickly, however, and authorized the dedication by a similar symbolic gesture. The dedication being thus consummated, nothing remained but for the 2 administrators to fulfill it. So the 4 threes were immediately transported to an available elementary apartment, and Most Hallowed Oso began the leisurely process of assimilating them. I hope that I am not being sacrilegious in wishing that our first visitors from space had been less fanatically observant of their religious obligations. We have long been curious about our neighbors on 3, and this would have been an excellent opportunity to study them. But perhaps more will come. The end. The text of the story was published on the public domain PDF page of sffaudio.com. If you enjoyed this recording, you can support this channel on Subscribestar. A special thank you to Avid Comic Reader, Bosco, Dan Sakharov, Dark Philly, Eve La Renaissance, Gregory Packleb, Gus Tyler Bush, HPG Wellscraft, J-Bomb, John Dillard Gaming the System, Lio Convoy Reviews, Seven Bark, Lieutenant Fish, The Right Geek, and Troy Reiser. Thank you for listening. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan, and I'll catch you later.